abusivefathers.com.
So, I was sitting down thinking, and I said, what if family judges were horses? What if family judges were horses, then beggars would not wish for anything, right? Who would want a horse that makes you pay horse support for horses you don't even get to see? Well, maybe you get to ride them like every 2 weeks or something. Reminds me of something else I used to ride every 2 weeks. Yes, it's a fun time. It's a fun time. My name is John Paul from bravefathers.com, and today we are going to go deep into a very painful topic about something that hurts a lot, but that does not mean we should not have fun, because we don't want the bad guys to win, whether it's an abusive mother or anybody else who has a negative impact in your life. You don't have to let them win. You can have fun however you are, whoever you are, wherever you are, okay? We need to stop with this heavy submission to all these negative forces that try to come in and destroy us. It's hot in here. So, we are going to talk about abusive mothers. We'll talk about parental alienation and some dark family court secrets. So there are two things that you need to keep in mind. Let me adjust. There are two things that you need to keep in mind as we go through this today. So one is, a lot of the stuff I say will be counterintuitive to you. So you may find it goes against everything you believe. It may go against even your very intuition. That's why it's counterintuitive, and what you are used to. And the reason why it's important for you to know that is you will resist a lot of the things I will say today. You will think, no, I'm just going to do it my way. And those are famous last words. That's how a lot of people end up failing in family courts, because they try to do it the conventional way. They don't understand that the family court is a different space altogether. It's a completely different world from what you're used to. And if you're already in proceedings, you already probably are feeling this. And part of the reason why people cannot win is because they struggle against the new reality in which they are found. So I'm gonna do my best to shed some light and give you a roadmap on how to navigate these things and how to figure out a strategy. Of course, feel free to reach out and get in touch whenever you think I can help you, and I can indeed help you, and I'm here to help you. So, who is an abusive mother? Why is it important to understand what one is, and how do we deal with them? And most importantly, what are the 3 mistakes that fathers make when dealing with abusive mothers? So the reason why you need to understand this is that most of the time, when there's no good reason to stop you from seeing your kids, the mother is essentially abusive. Now, whilst I have found some documentation that in UK courts that may be recognized, in general, it's not. It's actually accepted that, a mother will have to do a lot before she's denied access to her kids. Now, I won't deny that there are mothers who get alienated from their children, because there are. However, that's a different ballgame altogether. The strategies that a mother uses and the strategies that a father uses are two different things altogether, because the system is set up differently, as we will look into today. So here's the deal. If you don't know how to do with an abusive mother, you will end up not only not seeing your kids, you probably will have orders that stop you from going anywhere near the kids are. You might even get cut off completely from the kids' medical records, from their school records. You will be cut out of the children's life completely. And you still have to pay child support. You still be liable for all that. So that's the worst case scenario. And it gets bad either way, because, for example, if you end up only seeing your kids, let's say an hour or two every 2 weeks, and that's the final order, which it does happen to a lot of people, that's still not good enough, because you have to be in the kid's life, not just, for a couple of hours. A movie is 2 hours. You know what I mean? So you are literally the length of a movie in your children's lives every 2 weeks for that period of time, and that's it. So if you are not clear on how an abusive mother operates, you will find yourself in such a trap. And the part of the strategy that the abusive mother does is to keep you away from the kids so that she can alienate you. And the court system is such that all the delays give her time to brainwash these children and to hurt them. So in my definition, the abusive mother is a mother who hurts the children physically, emotionally, sometimes even sexually, and has no respect for their boundaries or your boundaries, and will destroy your relationship with those children to progress her own agenda that she believes will benefit her. So nobody wants to deal with that. I know it's difficult because, frankly speaking, the society we live in today does not want to acknowledge that there are a lot of abusive mothers, a lot. I have a stand, and my stand is any mother who stops the father from seeing the children for no good reason is abusive, period. There's no ifs and buts about it. That's abuse. Because the children need you in their lives. And frankly, you want to have them in your life too. You need them to a degree too. They are your children. So by destroying your relationship, she's hurting you and she's hurting the children. That alone is abuse. However, there are always other things that happen alongside that. She doesn't just stop there. It's not like she's a loving mother to the kids and is just spiteful to you. She probably screams at them unnecessarily, calls them names, probably controls every other thing they do. A lot of mothers will try to get a diagnosis for their kids, and now, medication is freely given, because that way they can claim a victim status, they can be looked upon as good mothers, as special mothers, and they have things to complain about, and they have ways to siphon things out of society and out of other people. So this phenomenon is dangerous to the children, is dangerous to the society, and yet we pretend it does not exist. And I have some theories about why that is, and we'll get to that in a bit. So let's look at the 3 mistakes that fathers make when dealing with abusive mothers, especially in family courts. So the first mistake, that is the biggest mistake at the beginning, it's that they make excuses for the mother. And this is bad because they usually do this even while they are in a relationship. So before the separation, they see the mother doing things that are wrong. Let's say your child comes to you and says, "Oh, mommy was screaming at me because, I fell down and I was hurting and she didn't give me a hug." And then some fathers might say, "Oh, I'm sure she loves you. I'm sure she was sorry. I'm sure she didn't mean that." Which is a lie. She meant it. That's why she did it. Now, you don't have to tell your child that, because especially young children are not ready to know that their mother does not love them. But you don't have to lie either. But when you make excuses for the mother, then you are putting in the child's mind that it's okay for their mother to hurt them. It's okay if you just say, "Look, I'm sorry that she did that. Come here, let me give you a hug." You don't have to lie. I know the society today tries to brainwash us to think we should lie and cover up the destructive actions of abusive mothers. But that doesn't mean you should do that too, because then that means you are complicit. You are hurting your children too. So don't make excuses for an abusive mother. Now, another way people make excuses is by pretending it's not happening. So a lot of fathers would look away. Or let's say they'll see their mother screaming at the child and they will say something to the effect of, oh, you shouldn't make your mom upset. Your mom gets upset. People do that. But that is being complicit in the abuse. And I don't take it lightly when people do that. I don't accept, I don't want to lose half of my money. I don't want to face false allegations. You face them anyway. And you can't sacrifice your child to protect yourself because that's what she is doing. Remember, I told you will not like some of this stuff and some of it is counterintuitive. But if you don't see where you are going wrong, where you're making mistakes, you will not be able to not only succeed in court, you will mess up your life and your children's life because these things have far-reaching consequences. So don't make excuses when people note that there are things she does wrong and may say it maybe at a family dinner or somewhere on the playground. Fair enough, you don't have to air out your family business, but don't go jumping in trying to make up lies to cover up the abuse. If she hits the child and there's a bruise and then you lie about it, you are covering it up. And that's the second biggest mistake, covering up the abuse. So first, there are excuses. So you make excuses for the abusive mother. And then you have covering up the abuse. And it's all going to backfire on you because what she's going to do is she will turn it around and make it look like you were the one who committed the abuse. So whatever happened to the children that hurt them, she will twist it and make it look like you did it. And because you covered up, that means you lied. And because you've lied, now you've lost your credibility. So she will take advantage of that. And she'll twist it against you. When you cover it up, it's harder for you later to make it look like you were not complicit. Because a lot of fathers don't realize how serious this abuse is. And while a lot of times social services ignore it, sometimes they don't. So if you cover it up, that means you are complicit. You are part of it. You are going down with her. If not going down instead of her, because they'll always be very happy to blame things on the father. Although I will admit, social services, when they found an abusive mother and they lock in. They really do. They will take the kids away from her. When they decide that that's the decision, which I don't know what their process is, how they discriminate. I know there's a threshold, but when they lock in on an abusive mother, they will make a case. They will take this mother to court. But again, if you are covering up, then that means you are complicit. And you are teaching the children that they are defenseless, that they are worthless, that they have no value. Because if daddy is not protecting them, if mommy is not protecting them, they must not be worth it. Because that's how children translate the world. They always look at the world from the vantage point as them being the center of the universe. So if something goes wrong or something goes right, they attribute it to themselves. So don't make the mistake of covering them up. Don't cover up an abusive mother's actions. Now, the third biggest mistake is not documenting the evidence, not keeping evidence. I will put my hands up. That's something that I did in the past. I've deleted messages thinking, I was creating a positive vibe in my life, messages that would have changed the outcome of my life and everybody who depends on me. So it's a mistake I've made as well. But that is a big mistake. You have to document everything, all the recordings, all the things, all the negative things that happen. You have to keep a recording. And at some point, you will have to make a report. And you have to have it in court. Because trust and believe, she will give evidence against you. The UK courts, the oral evidence, and I'm sure it's the same elsewhere, is evidence still. A witness testimony is still evidence. So in court, when she says things and the judge believes it, then that will be seen as truth. And that will affect the rest of your case. Most likely, if she's abusing the kids, she's also abusing you. Maybe she hates you. Maybe she calls you names. Maybe she puts you down. She controls you using sex. And a lot of people, a lot of fathers think that's normal. That's not normal. Yes, it's ubiquitous. A lot of people go through that, but that does not make it right, and that does not make it normal. So if you have allowed yourself to fall into that trap, then you are screwed. It's very difficult to get out of it. Don't keep the evidence hidden, or don't destroy it, and document it. Oh, she slapped the kid today. Let's say you intervene. Just write down, this is what happened this day at this time. Have the full log of what happened. Fathers can be victims of abuse too. I can understand that you may be in a psychological state where you don't realize that this is abuse, or you don't know how to get out. But that's why you're watching this, right? That's why we are here, to solve the problem. So that is the third biggest mistake, because when you go to court, you have to prove your case. And remember, the fact that she is abusive does not mean that automatically the court will see it, because I have seen situations where the court sees the abuse and pretends it's not happening. The mother would do things that if you did, you would be straight away punished for it, or you might lose contact with your children. You probably would. You might end up in a jail cell, yet the mother gets away with it. And that's one of the dark secrets of the family courts that we'll look at, because we are not allowed to talk about specific cases, right, by our law, but we are allowed to discuss what's in the open public, aren't we? So, and then we can talk about the things we've heard about other people going through, other people's experiences. So let's look at them. Let's not, hide what's happening. If there's nothing wrong with it, then why should it be hidden from the public? So I'm not going to share things that happened in any of my hearings, no. But I will share things that I know happened in other hearings that I've heard about. So recently I did a show and I spoke about a father who was alienating his children, and he was stopped from seeing the children altogether. So whether or not he was, that's another story, but that was what the court decided. Let's assume the court was right. But what I found interesting is that judgment did not have any expert witness report. So the whole thing was decided within the court, so presumably Kafkas and I think the social workers, they decided that's what was happening. I didn't see any expert witness report to the effect of the father was actually alienating the children. Why is this important? Your only way, really, in most cases, is to have an expert witness report that shows the mother is abusive. So there will have to be a clinical expert, a clinical psychologist coming in and doing a report, which costs thousands and thousands of pounds, right? So you might get it on legal aid, or sometimes if she has legal aid, that might pay for it if you qualify for legal aid. And if you are abused and you are below a certain income threshold, you do qualify for legal aid, even if you are a father. So you have to apply and see if you can get it, because you could get it, because fathers do get legal aid. Now, the father in this case was not examined by an expert witness, as far as I can tell. But when it's a mother, she would have to be examined by an expert witness. And there are situations where the expert witness report has been overturned or challenged, or basically led to a successful appeal. So you can win, but you have to have evidence. Because before you get permission for an expert witness, let's assume you are able to fund it somehow, you have to have a good reason for the expert witness to be allowed. You have to convince the judge that he should give permission for the expert witness to talk to the child and to talk to the whole family. And so, and it doesn't matter if the judge is female or male, they have to justify their decision to allow you to have an expert witness. So if you don't apply, and it's a Part 25 application, again, speak to a qualified legal advisor on this topic for legal advice, because nothing I state here is legal advice. But for it to be approved and allowed, you will have to have good reasons. And it's not easy, because judges have admitted that they will give parents grief if they want the application to be allowed. Not only that, by law, they must show that it's necessary, because the question is, why can't a social worker make the assessment or a Kafka's officer? And interestingly, when it comes to fathers being the alienators, they have to have seen with the recent appeal that was successful without an expert witness. But it's very unlikely that you will get that if the mother is abusive. So you need that evidence. Now, a lot of fathers are afraid of losing everything. And that's why they don't stand up to the abusive mother. But the truth is, you will lose everything. Because even if you spend your life with her, your children will hate you, and you will hate yourself for allowing it. You will lose your soul. And if she so desires, she will leave you and still take your property. Being a coward or submitting to an abusive mother is not going to save you, right? And we've all made a mistake, right? We've done it. We are here because we want to solve the problem. But we can't cower to these females who are abusive, or any other female for that matter. The fear you have will lead you to losing exactly the thing that you are scared of losing. So you can't hold back. And that's why these are the mistakes, because when you go into court, she will come at you with full force, and you are holding back. You don't have evidence. You don't have proof. You are not prepared. And so you end up struggling with your case. So another thing to consider is, parents do get alienated, right? And in this case, we're talking about fathers where the children were alienated against the father or turned against the father. And a lot of times, without realizing, the father makes it easier for the mother to alienate them. What do I mean? So first of all, if you don't have clear boundaries, you may not realize it, but those things frustrate children because it forces them to act without any boundaries. And even though on the surface, it looks like, oh, they like it, they really don't, because they get confused, they don't know what to do. And they don't have an adult to rely on to tell them which way to go, what's right, what's wrong, what are they allowed to do, what are they not allowed to do. You always see children that are not raised with boundaries acting out. You always see them acting out because they have no system for deciphering the world to know how to move, how to operate. And it builds up resentment because the children expect the father to tell them what to do. Imagine you go to a job and you have a boss who says, yeah, just do whatever you like. There are no parameters, there are no clear goals, there are no clear deadlines. You just show up. You'd be looking around, be thinking, this company is not going to last long, right? You'll be thinking, this will not work because everybody is just doing whatever they want. Like, how are we going to make money? And it's the same thing in a family. If there is no discipline, children instinctively feel this is not right. And they will blame you. Because no matter what the society wants you to believe, the father is still the central authority in the child's life. How you carry yourself is what will give them confidence and their identity when they go out into the world. It's not from the mother. Yes, the mother plays a role, but when you look at children who don't have fathers, they always feel like there's something missing in their life. They always feel that emptiness. They always try to make up for that emptiness, and there's always that anger in them. And it's interesting how many kids who didn't have their fathers always look for them. And those who don't, I've seen people who were grown up and they were reluctant to talk to their fathers or had no respect for their fathers. I've seen those people be abusive themselves. I've seen them hurt, in the case of a female, hurt their husbands. So it's like a trend that continues. And they think that's all right because an abusive mother does not see that there's anything wrong with her. So the first thing you have to do is to really be clear on your boundaries. But the moment you are clear on your boundaries, that will signal to the abusive mother that something is wrong, right? Because you start losing her control over you. Which means she will start both hoovering you in and both attacking you more relentlessly or perhaps discard you completely. So what you need to do is the moment you realize, the moment you wake up and you see what's going on, you have to start preparing your legal case. And if you're already within the proceedings, you need to 10 times your effort. Because she will realize at some point that you are not falling for the usual traps. And I've seen this happen. I've seen it happen so many times. The father wakes up, he starts, setting boundaries, starts doing the right things in court, and then she doubles down with the lies, with allegations. They'll breach the orders if they have to and lie about it, and the court will support them. The court will use her false allegations as evidence that she may be saying the truth. There will be no scrutiny. A lot of times, even when it's time to enforce a court order, the courts will not do it. Because they will say, if I find this mother or put her in jail, the child will be affected. So they will criticize the mother perhaps, and that will be the end of it. So that does not mean you should not fight for enforcement, but you have to understand the terrain. You are not in a friendly land, you are essentially behind enemy lines. The courtroom is essentially behind the enemy lines. So, the lies are the main evidence against you, but they are also your main point of attack. Because if you have the documentation, then you can prove those lies as untrue, right? If you have receipts, if you have pictures, recordings, videos, notes, all those things will help to prove that she's lying. So your job is really to study all the lies that are being told. To study all the lies that are being told. Now, your children will probably be told lies about you as well. So that's where you have to, again, 10 times your effort and become better as a man and more powerful as a man so that it's obvious that the lies are lies. So I'll give you an example. So there was a situation where, and a lot of mothers do this. They will say the father is unhygienic, he's dirty, the kids don't have clean clothes, and the kid is just in dirty, unhygienic conditions. So the child should not go over to the father's house. Most of the time it's not true, but every little thing will be used as evidence to say that it is true, that that's what's happening. So the obvious thing to do is get your house in order. clean the house. If you need to paint it fresh, you paint it. If you need to fix your furniture, you do it. If you don't have money, just make sure it's clean. Regardless, you should make sure it's clean so that when the social worker or a Kafka's officer visits your home, they will see a clean home. Right? Because then those lies will not make sense. But if you have a few plates in the kitchen, that will go into the report. And you may think it's trivial, but remember, the court hearings are short. So every minute, every little moment has a lot of impact on your situation. Every little moment has impact on your situation. So you can't afford not to be at your best. You just have to be at your best, even though it's not fair. What else do we have? If children grow up with the lies that an abusive mother tells them, that will skew their perception of themselves. To make it difficult for them to function in the world, because they will struggle as an adult or as adults to have their own feeling of self-worth, which means they'll be susceptible to other people abusing them too. If you believe those lies, it will diminish your ability to function as a father, and it will diminish your ability to take care of yourself. And listen, I understand it's painful. There is a time to grieve. There's a time to just, go through that process. But the court process is long. So at some point, you need to get up. You need to clean yourself up and start getting your life in order. Everything. Because you don't realize it, but you were chosen to be in the abusive situation. Abusive people, abusive mothers know who to pick. After you've learned all this, you're not going to ever be prey again to an abusive mother. Right? It will never happen to you again, ever. You will meet good women who add value to your life. Because there are many good women out there that are waiting for a man like you, who will value you, who will cherish you, who will see you as somebody they can look up to and will want to spend their time and make love, have fun, enjoy times with you. Well, after you've been through an abusive situation, it's difficult to believe that there is such a thing. But it does get better if you get up. Now, it is difficult, but you cannot just stop yourself from winning because it's difficult. Because if winning was easy, everybody would be a winner and nobody would lose. But you can't lose if you don't give yourself that chance. So you can't believe the lies. Because a lot of abusive mothers, one of their weapons is to isolate their victim and then just lie to them. Right? And because you trust her in the beginning, you don't realize it, but then it seeps into your brain. So again, that is a mistake in the beginning, but you can't wallow in it for a long time. There's too many fathers online feeling sorry for themselves. You can't feel sorry for yourself because your misery will not help you. It will not give you strength. Yes, grieve it by all means. Yes, feel the pain, let it process it, of course. Acknowledge that you've been a victim of abuse by all means, all day long. At some point, let that go. Be the man you truly are, because being a victim is not your definition, and there is no justice for victims. And if you are a victim, then your children will remain victims because you won't be able to fight for them. The more evidence you have, the more likely you are to win, because then you can start the proceedings yourself. Most fathers do anyway. And then you will be prepared. You will be steps ahead. And no matter how prepared you are, you will always be behind. You win through little tiny victories, little twists and turns. You win because over time you accumulated enough points, so to speak, to turn the case in your favor. And it's possible with a lot of effort. You won't do it just trusting a solicitor, or just thinking I'll read up a few things online or watch a couple of videos and be fine. No, 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 no. It has to be a concerted effort. That's a decision that you make, and you keep moving in that direction. I always tell the story of how I took a section of the house in the room where I had my office, and that was my legal office. All the law books. I remember when I took my red book, I was reading it, helping one of my clients. Actually, it was on the Part 25 application. And, he was representing himself, but he had a direct access barrister. And the direct access barrister was like, oh, how did you get that? Like, is that yours? I was like, yes. And she was surprised. Because a lot of people who prepare for this, a lot of people won't spend the money on the red book, right? But you need it because all the family law in the UK is in that book. That's what judges refer to when they are making the decisions. That's what they cross-check, double-check to make sure they are right. And they often are wrong. So that's why it's important to learn how to appeal a case. How to appeal a case. So, let's talk about some of the dark secrets of the family courts, because you need to understand this. And this is my theory of how things work. And by observation, it is true. So I said earlier on that an abusive mother will get away with a lot. My contention is that this is by design. That the whole court system is designed around an abusive mother fueling the thing. What really gives energy to the thing is the father's effort. But because the father is fighting for his kids, so he's going to do everything he can to get his kids. So the system can just fleece him along the way. But the mother will keep it burning when the fire should go out. How does she do it? She'll make false allegations. I'm sure if the average person knows that a lot of the allegations are false, the courts know that a lot of allegations are false because they do fact-finding hearings, and often they find that the allegations are false. So they know this. But in all the reforms that we are hearing, there's no talk of what do we do about false allegations that add 6, 7, 8, 9 months to a case? What do we do about all the lies the mother tells that can stretch the case over 2 years? There are cases where the mother will lie for 2 years, and after those 2 years, the judge will say, well, the mother lied, but unfortunately, we are here where we are. The child is now 13 years old, or 11 years old, or 14 years old, and does not know the father. So it's not safe for them to just resume contact like that. And the child does not want to see the father, right? Because the abusive mother has brainwashed the child. And then that's the end of it. The mother doesn't even get a slap on the wrist. So this tells me that the system, the people who are behind the system know this. So if you are trying to expose a mother in court, know that they probably already know she's abusive. They can already tell. But I think the system is designed such that they cannot show, let's say, 30% of the mothers are abusive, 40% of the mothers are abusive, 50, maybe 90%, whatever the figure is, right? They have no problem saying 90% of the men are abusive if they feel like saying that, or 100% of them, or whatever percentage they want. But they have a problem saying when the mother is at the higher end. When it comes to infanticide, when you look at the stats, they are heavily skewed against mothers. That's why they don't show the full statistics. They don't show how many mothers committed the crime, or how many fathers, or how often it was the mother's fault, or somebody associated with the mother, because that goes against the narrative. So the narrative is that men are abusive. The narrative is that men are abusive and women are victims. That is the lie that is then used in family courts as the primary driver. A lot of laws are being written around that idea. So the other thing you need to know is a lot of judges are barristers themselves. Even a solicitor could become a judge. So a law professor could become a judge. After you have certain years, a certain number of years practicing law, lecturing or in court or whatever, you can apply for the job of being a judge. But if you're a barrister or a lawyer, in the UK, you probably want your firm to have some kind of accreditation with the biggest women's organizations, right? Because that proves you are not somebody who does not support protecting women, right? So which means you have an affiliation one way or the other. A lot of people don't know this, but when you go online, let's say you want to have a non-molestation order, which is promoted exclusively, as far I can tell, only to females. That female goes online, files an application. If you are not accredited by one of these organizations, you will not receive notice that she's filed. But the moment you file, you put in your postcode, and the thing is going to tell you all the law firms within a certain radius from you. And it's going to ask you, do you want to send the application to these firms? So in the end, you will say yes, right? If you're a mother applying for a non-mol, you will say yes. And then all these legal firms get the mother's application. When they get the application, the obvious thing is they get in touch. And then whoever convinces her that she should become a client, gets her as a client. They apply for legal aid, and then she gets paid. And that's how the system keeps running. So a lawyer knows that without these applications for non-molestation and things like that, the system, loses its force. Now, barristers are not allowed, as far as I can tell, to be, I don't know what the law is exactly, but there are some restrictions as far as how they associate themselves with the chambers. But people still get paid through the process. If abusive mothers decided today, you know what, we are not going to stop fathers from seeing their kids, what will family courts do? Because the main fight, other than finances, is the children. I would argue that it is mostly about the children. The finances, well, the women get more money when you don't get to see the kids, so you could still argue that it's about the finances, but the children are in the middle of it, right? So one way or the other, if you take out the children from the equation, what are the courts going to do? Yes, there are couples who separate and they fight over money, but that's a smaller number. So if mothers stop being abusive today, the court system would collapse overnight or within a few weeks. If the court started exposing abusive mothers today, within the next few weeks, the system would die down because the mothers would not want to go to court because they would be exposed. So that will drastically cut down family court cases. Because most of the time when there is a case, not all the time, but most of the time, the father goes in because he wants to see his children. He wants to spend time with his children. He wants to raise them. He wants to give them a good life. He wants to be a father to them. So if the abusive mother allowed him to see the kids, even on 50-50 basis, he would not go to court. I would argue even if they had the kids a third of the time, the fathers would not go to court. So the danger of not understanding this will make you believe that, oh, if I just show that she's abusive, that will be enough. But it's not enough. You have to have preponderance of evidence you have to show how she is so bad to the kids that even the prejudiced judge would not want to make a decision in her favor. Ideally, you want to give her a chance to expose herself. And again, she'll do that through her lies. You, on the other hand, cannot fight the battle exclusively in court. You absolutely have to get yourself in such a position where your mind is at its sharpest. Because you go into the courtroom and she'll say lies. She'll say, oh, he pushed me against the wall and slapped me. And you know you've never hit this woman ever in your life, right? But her lawyer is going to say it as if she saw it. She was looking at it. She saw you slapping her herself. And you did it in her mind. So naturally, you are going to have a reaction, right? You're going to be angry. You might want to object right there, like, no, I didn't do it, like she's lying. You may do some kind of thing that shows an outburst of anger. But in family court, that will be used to say, look, there, he's angry again. This is what he does. This is what he does. So your mind has to be the sharpest, because now that you're aware of this, you have to sit down, listen to it patiently, and then respond. And you are going to struggle if you are not prepared emotionally. So that's why when I say certain things that are very harsh and they hurt, it's because they are true, right? But you have to process those things because those are your triggers. If you deal your triggers before you go into the court, you have a stronger chance of winning because now you won't get triggered in court. I remember there was one situation where certain things was being said about me and I was furious. But I was expecting some of them. So I had worked through them. I had given myself time and a process, to process those emotions. It was still infuriating hearing them, but it wasn't the same as before. So I was able to hold it in long enough, to relax long enough to get home. And when I got home, I was screaming. I was so angry. I think I might have broken a thing or two. I was furious. But in court, none of this came out because I had already processed the initial anger. If I hadn't, I would have exploded in court. So now, I was able to fight back because I was patient enough to listen. You listen, you write down, she's lying about this, I didn't do this, I didn't do the other. You write those things down. You write those things down, right? That will help you to calm down. And then you respond. You don't react, you respond. So I think one of the darkest secrets is that the courts are aware of the abuse. And I've spoken to people who are part of the judiciary in my work, before I started making this public. But I've spoken to members of the judiciary. I can't repeat everything they've told me. I cannot do that because that will not be good for anyone. I can't. But what you should know is many are aware of what's going on. But the system is such that if you say it, it will be treated as a conspiracy theory and you'll be made to look like a fool. But if you look at so many fathers saying this, it's true. And then they will come back and say, oh, but mothers also alienate children. Mothers also get alienated from their children, right? Fathers do this as well. And again, they do. There are fathers who do that. But it's a different ball game for them. It's a completely different thing. It takes a lot more to win in court against a mother than it takes to win against a father. Because against the father, all the abusive mother has to do is to lie. That's all she has to do. Lie. 6 months later, 9 months later, oh, it turns out she was lying. Well, let's proceed. Let's keep it moving. That's what happens. So, once you understand this, you don't lose hope. You don't give up. You don't say to yourself, you can't do it, because you can't do it. You understand that you live at a point in history where fathers are being mistreated by the family courts. You live at a time in history when discrimination against fathers in family courts is normal. You live in a time in history where a woman can lie, you can prove she's lying, and she gets no repercussions. But the good news is, if you get through it, you get to see your kids, you get to be in your children's lives. And that's what you are fighting for. You're not fighting for fairness or for justice, because that does not happen. You're not going to get that. What you can get, though, is time to spend with your children, to be involved in your children's lives. So to summarize what we've discussed today, the 3 biggest mistakes that fathers make when they are going against abusive mothers in family courts are making excuses for the mother, thinking that that will make them look good, but no, it won't, and it will give the mother more opportunities to win against you. 2, they cover up the abuse the mother does to them and the children, including destroying evidence. And that makes the children just feel hopeless, and it sets them up to grow up to be abused, because if their father is covering up the abuse, then they have no hope. And it's very painful to witness and to watch. 3 is many fathers don't document the abuse, and they don't gather evidence of the abuse so they can present it in court when it's time. And there are many fathers who have actually been saved from going to jail or even being arrested by showing the evidence they have. So don't go easy on an abusive mother. If she needs to get arrested, if she does something, press charges. More importantly, prepare for your case ahead of time. And we'll talk about that in a moment. But the hidden danger is that this mother can totally take everything away from you if you don't act. And you still have to be paying her money every month to take care of the kids. She can block you from the schools. She can block you from going near the children, even speaking to them. But you'll still be liable for child support. Moreover, the abuse will make the children used to being abused. They may get bullied in school because they are used to being abused and nobody protecting them in any way, shape, or form. So you can't afford for that to happen. And also, I think the court's dark secret is they know these mothers are abusive. But the laws are such that obviously there's a due process. And unfortunately, because there is a lot of influence on the judiciary by the government that has sworn, like in the UK, that they're going to have the violence against women and girls, but they've not said what they are going to do against violence against boys and men, because they're not going to do anything. So if they expose the violence created by women, that goes against the narrative. And because they have to increase those statistics, they will use you as the victim. So even if she is abusive, and I've read judgments where the mother is also abusive, let's say the father is abusive, the mother is abusive, they minimize the mother's abuse or they blame it on the father or both. Because that allows them to say in the statistics, hey, we did this thing to prevent violence against women and girls, and let's pretend the abuse against the boys and the fathers and the men does not exist. So that tells you that you should prepare that much harder because, again, it's a long game. The way you win in court, in UK family court and elsewhere in the world, is you have to look at the long game. You have to dedicate yourself to the process. Every day you have to do something to help you move your case progress. But it's much easier when you have somebody who's been through it, who has won, and who has helped others. So that's where I come in. I work as a family court strategist. I'm not your typical Mackenzie friend. In fact, I don't like being a Mackenzie friend because that minimizes what I really do. What you need is to have a strategy. You have to have a plan that looks 12 months ahead, 3 months ahead, a year ahead, 2 years ahead, perhaps even 4 or 5 years ahead, so that you can win the case. And you may think that that's an overkill, but the problem is the women's organizations have got a blueprint that stretches the kid's lifetime. That's why when the court proceedings start, things start happening very, very quickly. So one of the first things they do, for example, is to apply for a non-molestation order. They often apply for an occupation order as well, which basically means you are kicked out of your house so that the mother stays with the kids. But that's already planned even before the mother goes into the court, before they hear of you, before they hear of her. They already know what to do. They've got the strategy, they've got the playbook. But fathers don't have a playbook. But that's what I do. I create your playbook for the court. And I call it the forbidden playbook because I did a lot of things that most people don't do. So for example, I went to feminist meetings to listen to what they are saying. I went to participate in certain women's organizations events just to know how they do things. I read documentations that they circulate. I also have some internal documents that I've read that tell me what's going on from the inside. I've spoken to the members of the judiciary to know more about what's happening. So a lot of these things are dark secrets that I will not put publicly online because that will reduce their power. But when I work with my clients, I share a lot of these things. And also, each case is different, right? So whilst there's a playbook, there are different branches in each case. There are different directions each case can go. So my job is to figure out what's the best thing to do for you and your case. How do I progress what you are doing? Sorry, forgive me. I'm about to wrap up. How to progress what you are doing and find the best strategy for you. And it's interesting because sometimes you have to do something a year ahead. So for example, if you have a Section 7 report coming, you should be, if we look at your case, for example, and early on we know this most likely will result in a Section 7 report, which is basically a 13-week deadline report where Kafkas or a social worker looks into your life and your children's lives, the mother's life, to make a decision. So we know this, even though the court has not ordered it, we can tell from where things are going that that's what will be ordered. So we can start preparing for the Section 7 report before it's even being decided upon. And sometimes you have to be very accurate with what you do. So the more time you have to prepare, the more likely that you get the report in your favor. So we look at things, for example, like, okay, what are all the things working against you? Then one by one, we'll find various ways to counter those things and so forth. So if you are looking for someone who understands what you're going through, who wants to help you, who can help you, get in touch with me. We'll find the right strategy and we'll help you to see your kids. So thank you so much. It's time to wrap up. I appreciate you being here. I'll be here again next week and we'll keep up the good fight. So no matter what it is, don't give up. Don't give up. Don't give up. Keep going. Your children need you. They deserve you. And you deserve to have your children in your life. So thank you once again. This is John Paul from bravefathers.com. And I'm going to sign out now. Thank you so much. And I'm going to see you again next week.
bravefathers.com